In episode 2, all of Joe's problems, at least he thinks, are gone because he took care of the Uncle Bob situation. He feels like he protected his family. But Kate, she's worried. Now, while it does seem like a monkey has been lifted off her shoulders, it doesn't mean she's not concerned that eventually this will get back to them. But Joe assures her, no, I was careful. One of her concerns, though, is that quote unquote fictional writing he did about murdering Uncle Bob. That would be pretty damning, and she says, that can never see the light of day. Promise me you're going to burn it. And Joe does promise, but that's his writing. He's not actually about to burn it. He'll just store it away so that no one ever sees it. The place, of course, where he's going to store it is Mooney's bookstore, where he heads over after talking with Kate. He meets up with Bronte, and they start getting the place ready for their grand reopening. She starts flirtatiously ribbing him about the fact that he's mentioned in magazines and he has dinners with princes where she's homeless. And one thing she can't figure out is why exactly, if he is rich, he's doing this job. But he tells her, well, I like it. I mean, I used to work here. The conversation, though, does get into the fact that Bronte is still staying at the bookstore. And Joe just starts trying to throw money at her. Well, what if I bump your paycheck up $5 more an hour, 10 more, 15 more? But she actually gets insulted by this because it's such a rich person thing to do. It's not going to help her in the meantime. Joe can't figure out how someone can be as frustrating yet captivating at the same time. He then notices, though, that the bookshelf that is protecting the door to the basement has been moved. And he asks Bronte about it, and she says, oh, yeah, I moved it. I couldn't get in there. Joe tells her that if you go down there, it's a little bit dangerous, so just stay out of the basement. He then, however, gets a phone call from Henry's school, and he has to head over. And when he and Kate arrive, Henry is talking to the police, and they don't quite figure out why, and that's when Regan and her family walk out because Regan's daughter Gretchen has a broken nose thanks to Henry. He attacked her. Regan is understandably pissed, and Joe and Kate head in and talk to the headmaster of this very prestigious school. And the headmaster wants to get to the bottom of this because it's very unlike Henry. I mean, Joe is very defensive of his son. When the headmaster starts asking questions about whether or not he's been violent in the past, did he have a violent upbringing, Joe takes offense to it. It's clear to everybody in the room that the headmaster has clearly found a trigger point for Joe. And she tells him, look, I'm going to do an investigation and try to figure out what happened here, but I do have to tell you, we have a strict code of conduct, and if Regan presses charges, we're going to have to expel Henry. Which means that Joe and Kate are going to have to do damage control because this school is very prestigious, and it's a really good school to have Henry in. Now, one of the issues is Henry isn't talking. So Joe takes it upon himself to get to the bottom of it. With Henry currently suspended from school, Joe takes him over to the bookstore. And when they arrive, Bronte did not heed Joe's advice. She was actually trying to pick the lock of the basement and try to find out what was down there, but she had to stop, obviously, when the door opened, and it's Joe and Henry. Bronte meets Henry. She says hello. She finds out why he's coming to work with Joe, and then Joe gently asks Henry, hey, what happened? And one of the first things that Henry does is apologize. He says that he shouldn't have done what he did. So it's pretty clear to Joe that he is raising a good kid who's not overly violent. He just made a bad decision. But what he finds out from Henry is the reason why Henry lashed out was because Gretchen said that Henry's mother was a murderer. And clearly Gretchen didn't come up with that on her own. She overheard it from Regan. When Joe heads home to tell Kate the news, he finds Kate getting ready to host a dinner party. And he asks, what's all this about? And she tells him, we have to make peace with Regan before she presses charges. I've invited her and her husband over for dinner. And yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable, but we just got to get it done. And that's when Joe tells Kate about the reason why Henry lashed out. Kate is absolutely disgusted about the fact that Regan talked about such a serious topic in front of a child. And even though she is disgusted, she tells Joe, we need to be the bigger people because Regan can hold a grudge. Their plan is to charm Regan into submission. So that night, Regan and her husband show up. They're still really pissed off. Then there's a surprise when Maddie shows up with some random guy. Joe thinks Maddie was invited by Regan so that they could have the numbers to gang up on Kate, but Kate planned for this. Teddy walks down, and right away, Teddy and Regan start getting into it. and it's about to be a very uncomfortable dinner. It doesn't take long for the elephant in the room to be addressed, and Kate starts apologizing, trying to figure out what it's going to take for Reagan not to press charges. While they start discussing what exactly they're going to do, it becomes clear that a lot of this isn't necessarily about what happened to Gretchen. A lot of it is simple jealousy from Reagan regarding Kate getting the company. Eventually, though, they do agree that a suitable first step would be for Kate and Joe to pay for the rhinoplasty that Gretchen's going to need. But when Kate asks what's an acceptable second step, Reagan tells them, well, Henry can't go back to that school. He's got to find another school. She also demands an apology from both Kate and Joe because, quote, their horrible parenting is what led to Henry's outburst. She starts bringing up how Henry, because of his history, really should have been in therapy a long time ago, and Joe starts taking offense to this, but Kate cuts him off and just apologizes. She does what Reagan wants. By the time that Kate finishes, Joe has kind of come to his senses, and he does the same thing. He apologizes for Henry's behavior. But when Joe wraps up, Reagan looks at him and says, I don't really believe you. And that's when Joe's had enough. He tells her, you know what, I can't believe that you would talk in front of your daughter about the fact that Henry's mom is a murderer. That's what made him lash out. And Reagan chuckles and says, no, I wasn't talking about love. I was talking about Kate. Because I'm convinced that Kate had Uncle Bob killed. And that opens up a whole new can of worms. I mean, you've got Maddie just sitting there with popcorn, just eating all of this drama in. You've got Kate and Joe disgusted. You've got Reagan going for the kill shot. And then you've got Teddy, who says, oh, no, Kate didn't do it. I saw the videotape, the surveillance of what happened with Uncle Bob, and he very much committed suicide. And that takes Joe completely off guard. He's really concerned about it, as is Kate. But Teddy doubles down on it, saying he saw the video and he deleted it, which Reagan doesn't really buy. As the fingers continue to get pointed, Kate finally tries to get the conversation back on track by looking at Reagan and saying, we've done everything you've asked. So I got to ask, why are you still trying to punish us? Like, what do you want? And finally, Reagan says, what I want is for you to step down as CEO. She once again says that Kate is a murderer. She had Uncle Bob killed because she knew the vote of no confidence was coming, and Kate didn't have the numbers. And when Joe pipes up and says, don't talk to my wife like that, Reagan turns to him and says, who are you with your bad seed son? You're just something else that Kate took on to look more virtuous. And she turns her vitriol to Kate and tells her that she is looking into every little detail of her life to take her down. And that's when Henry storms in and throws a knife at her. Now, it's a butter knife, but it still hits her in the face, and that puts an end to the dinner party. Afterwards, Kate and Joe start talking about what they're going to do regarding this Reagan situation. And Joe goes to his natural reaction. Why don't we just kill her? But Kate is mortified by that. She tells Joe, no, we're not doing that. We're not killing my sister. I mean, when does it stop? We're just going to kill everybody that crosses us? And to Joe, that's what he usually does. Kate, however, thinks level-headed. She wants to go through lawyers, do a mediation with the school, put Henry in therapy. But Joe is against that idea. He doesn't think that his son needs therapy, and Kate thinks that he is crazy for that line of thinking because Henry has been through a lot. This starts a massive argument between the two, and they just go to bed angry at each other. Joe, however, has another problem that he was unaware of. Because while this dinner party was going down, Bronte finally did get into the basement, and she saw the cage. And she went inside, she started taking pictures, but then she got locked in the cage. So Joe got an alert on his phone, many alerts, that said that there was activity in the basement. He headed down there, and there's Bronte, locked up. And Joe, who has had a night, is now once again pissed off. Joe kind of deflects on when asked what exactly this cage is because he's just fumbling with the keys. He's pissed off. Bronte just wants to get out of there. But before he does let her out, he asks her, what were you doing down here? And that's when she admits that she was looking for the rare books. She figured that she could find a rare book, sell it, and pay off all of her debts. And she feels really bad about that because Joe had kind of taken her in, given her a job. And she does love the bookstore. But she also has those debts. He ends up letting her out, but telling her, you're fired. I never want to see you again. But right as she's about to leave, she stops and said, I read your writing. because that's where Joe put all of the murderous fiction. He put it in the cage, and Bronte had nothing else to do. She tells him, though, that the writing is decent, but she starts pointing out how the protagonist in the story has no backstory, no flaws, no wounds. And she asks him, you have more in you? I mean, what are you hiding from? And for the second time that night, Joe loses it. He yells at her that growing up, he was seen as damaged goods. He got dragged through the mud. He was raised on that mattress. And after this angry sob story, Bronte just looks at him and says, oh, nice to meet the real you, and leaves. Joe ends up going home, and the next night, he heads out. He's going to take care of the Reagan situation, whether Kate wants him to or not. He follows Reagan for most of the day. And when she's in the office by herself, he figures that would be the proper time. He starts watching her from afar, looking at what she's doing. But then she's attacked by a masked assailant. And Joe isn't quite sure what to do because it looks like she's about to get sexually assaulted. But then all of a sudden, the mask comes off, and it's Harrison, Reagan's husband. And it's some uncomfortable fantasy. But Joe isn't about to just let it go down. So when Harrison gets up to go check something for the closet, he pushes him in, locks him in there, and then he takes a blunt object and hits Reagan in the head and somehow gets her out of there, gets her to Mooney's, and puts her in the cage. Now it's just a matter of either blackmailing Reagan or convincing her not to press charges. But Joe will figure all that out later. And as Joe was doing that, Kate was meeting with Teddy because she wants to let him know she's nominating Teddy for the empty board seat that was vacated when Uncle Bob killed himself. Well, one of the other reasons why she wanted to meet with Teddy was to find out whether or not Teddy actually looked at the security footage. And she finds out, no, Teddy was bluffing the entire time. He has no idea what was on that security footage. When Joe wakes up the next day, he feels bad about what he did to Bronte. He gives her a phone call and lets her know that she needs to come by the bookstore. And as Joe is writing, she walks in, and he hands her sleeping bag, which she left there, but he also offers her job back. He does let her know, though, that he installed cameras. There's one other thing he's going to do for her. Since he now owns the building, he owns the apartments above it, and he takes her to an empty one, the one that he used to live in, and he's going to gift it to her. No strings attached. She'll have a place to stay. She no longer has to stay with a toxic ex. When the door closes, however, Bronte gets really freaked out, and Joe can sense it, and he asks, what's going on? What's wrong? And finally, Bronte says, all right, I got to be honest. I read that vapid self-help book by Sherry and Carrie, and they said it was your late wife's idea to put them in a cage. So when I saw a cage here, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. Joe quickly just tells her, hey, she got that idea from me. I told her how Mr. Mooney used to lock me in a cage to strengthen me, and yeah, that's where she got the idea from. This does seem to put Bronte at ease, and Joe drops the keys and tells her, hey, the job and the apartment's yours if you want it. But right before he leaves, Bronte makes it clear, I don't sleep with married men, even though that seed has clearly already been implanted. Now Joe's in a pretty good mood. He's got his number one employee back, he's got Reagan in a cage in the basement, and now it's time to address the Henry situation. He's come around on the therapy. He talks to Henry about it, and Henry's on board with going to talk to a therapist. So it just seems like the family's just doing better. When Joe walks out of Henry's room, he and Kate have a little bit of a heart-to-heart where Kate apologizes for some things but makes it clear that what they did with Bob, they're never doing it again. Joe still looks at it like they did what they had to do, but Kate looks at it like it was a moment of weakness. She then admits that when Joe told her that he felt exhilarated when he handled Bob, it scared her. And then she stands up and asks him, are you doing this to protect us, or is there something else? Is there something that you can't control? Before Joe can answer, though, she gets a phone call. And as Joe is trying to figure out what exactly he's going to say when she gets off the phone, he hears the voice on the other end. It's Reagan. She's decided to press charges, but Joe can't figure out how that can be because Reagan is in the cage. And that's when he realizes that it wasn't Reagan that he caged. It was her sister. And when he goes to double check, yeah, sure enough, there's Maddie in the cage, very confused. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.